So our next lesson on the foundations of Rome is going to be about the role of the tribunes after they'd been created. So here's a revision of the last lesson about the first secession, about the creation of the tribunes, the outcome. If you don't know the answer, look back in the previous video. So the conflict continues. The conflict of the orders was not settled by the creation of the tribunes. It just changed. So between these, in this 32-year period, we're going to look at that one now. Various names, generals, various consuls and tribunes, and we're going to look at all through this. You know, agrarian laws to do with agriculture, which is ownership of land. You know what a tyrant is? Somebody who rules outside the law, uses force. A veto, and he can stop something happening. Reform is changing the law. Indictment is bringing a charge against somebody. You're indicting them. Indict, not indict. So, first off, not long after the first secession, there's great famine in Rome. The plebeians have not been working, so it's caused a famine. A Roman general, Coriolanus, says, well, it's the plebeians' fault, let them starve. Yeah. So the new tribunes indict him for this crime. And he threatened to prosecute him for his actions. He decides to ignore them. He is testing the power of the new tribunes, and he's gambling that they don't have any real power. He's a patrician, he can do what he wants. There's rioting in Rome. The Senate agreed to put Coriolanus on trial, so they win. The tribunes win. They get him put on trial. He runs, turns traitor, joins Zabolski, and leads a war against the Romans. But the point of the story is, he is testing the power of the new tribunes. He starts off not believing they have any power, and he's proved wrong. Right, a few years later, Spurius Cassius, an agrarian reform. Yeah. So Spurius Cassius is a consul, and he decides he is going to bring in widespread agrarian reform, change the laws on ownership of land. They've won a war against Henici. He decides to give some of that land to the plebeians. However, he's made a political mistake. He has no allies. By doing this, by planning to give the land to the plebeians, he turns the patricians against him. The plebeians don't trust him, so he's got no friends. He tries to win the plebeians' favour by giving them grain, food, flour. He gets accused of tyranny and is executed, so that fails. Moving on, a few years later. First off, you got Dinucius. He's a tribune of the plebs, and he plans more agrarian reforms, and he plans to indict several senators. They warn him not to do this. He plans to go ahead. The senators meet in private, in secret in fact, and the next day Dinucius turns up dead. No one knows for certain what happened. It's assumed he's assassinated. So there's definitely limits here to the power of the tribunes. About a year later, you've got Valerio Publilius. Now he is a soldier. He's a plebeian. And when he's called up for the army, he refuses to serve because in previous years he's been an officer. So he gets arrested. The lictors come and arrest him. He gets the rabble, the crowd going by accusing the current tribunes of being the lickspittles of the patricians, of the senators, of working for them. The crowd are incited. They beat up the lictors and they free Publilius. The next year, Publilius wins election to the post of tribune. And he brings in quite an important reform, and he gets it passed. He removes the patrician veto on who's allowed to run for tribune. Up until this point, not any plebeian could be tribune. If you wanted to be a tribune, you had to be a pleb, obviously, and you had to have the permission of the patricians and the Senate. Fabilius removes their right of veto, and now anybody, any plebeian, can become a tribune, and that worries people because any sort of rabble rouser, any troublemaker can now become a tribune. Which does lead to trouble between Valero, Fabilius here, and Appius. Now, Appius is the son of the other Claudius Appius, but they're the same name and the same point of view. They're very much against the plebeians having power. The two clash. They clash really quite strongly. It causes violence in the city. In 470 BC, Appius is indicted by Valero, by the tribunes, for his role in trying to repress them. He agrees to go to court, but he dies before that. But it does mark a change in the relationship between the plebeians and the patricians and in regard to the tribunes. From now on, the tribunes are going to be more radical. They're going to be the actual representatives of the plebeians. And lastly, by 467 BC, you've got another tribune, Gaius Terentilius. Now, what's happened is this. Rome's won a war against the Volsci. The consuls plan to give plebs land in their area, create a colony. Now, the way it's presented in the sources is that the tribune, Gaius Terentilius, is worried that will reduce his power. If the plebs get land outside Rome, there'll be less pressure to change Rome, and there'll be less power for the tribunes. They'll be less likely to be able to incite the plebs to causing trouble. So, Terentilius starts a new campaign against the consuls. He says, look, they're tyrants. Their powers give them tyrannical powers. They can call it tyranny because there's no written constitution. It's not written down anywhere what the consuls can and cannot do. So we need a written set of laws, a written constitution. The Senate say, you know what, that's a good idea. We need to think about it. It's a delaying tactic. It's called kicking it into the long grass and hoping people forget. You don't say, no, you can't do it, because that will cause trouble. Instead you say, yeah, maybe, but not at the moment. You're kicking it into the long grass. And they, in fact, do kick it into the long grass. They put it off for over 10 years.